Tonight, let your mind wander through the past. Calm facts from history, science, and the wider world, one at a time, to help you drift off. Nothing to remember. Just listen and let go. Oxford University in England is older than the Aztec Empire. Teaching had already been happening at Oxford for more than a century before the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan was founded. In the ancient city of Rome, an hour of daylight in summer was longer than an hour of daylight in winter, because they simply divided whatever daylight there was into 12 equal parts. For much of history, blue was one of the rarest and most expensive colors an artist could use, because it had to be ground from a semi-precious stone carried thousands of miles. The oldest known melody that can still be played was written down more than 3,000 years ago, in the ancient kingdom of Ugarit, on a tablet of clay. Medieval people often slept in 2 shifts, waking in the quiet middle of the night for an hour or so of calm wakefulness before drifting back to a second sleep. The Great Wall of China was built and rebuilt over nearly 2,000 years by many different dynasties, so it is less a single wall than a long conversation across centuries. Tea was, for a long stretch of history, so valuable that pressed bricks of it were used as money across parts of Asia, and could be traded for goods or carried as savings. The city of Damascus has been lived in continuously for thousands of years, meaning someone has woken there, made a meal, and gone back to sleep every day for longer than most nations have existed. In 1294, after cardinals spent more than 2 years failing to agree on a new pope, a hermit monk named Pietro de Morone sent them a letter warning that divine punishment would fall on them if they kept stalling. The cardinals were so moved by the warning that they elected Pietro himself, and he became Pope Celestine V. In 2008, Rwanda became one of the first countries in the world to ban plastic bags outright, with real penalties for anyone caught using one. Kigali, the capital, is now often called the cleanest city in Africa, helped along by a monthly nationwide cleanup morning called Umuganda that many Rwandans still take part in. The voice actor who played Optimus Prime in the original Transformers cartoon based the character's calm, steady delivery on his own older brother, a Marine officer who had served in the Vietnam War. His brother's advice was simple: real heroes do not yell, they stay controlled enough to be gentle. By 1797, the young United States was spending close to a fifth of its entire federal budget paying tribute to the Barbary states of North Africa, just to keep American ships from being seized. The expense became so unsustainable that it helped push Congress toward building a proper navy instead. Shirley Temple's film career as a child star earned millions of dollars through the 1930s, but by the time she retired from acting around age 22 in 1950, she found that most of that fortune was already gone, spent and managed away by the adults who had been trusted to look after it. When the movie Tron came out in 1982, the Academy Awards actually left it out of the running for the Visual Effects Prize, because using computers to help build the effects struck some judges as too close to cheating to count as real filmmaking craft. While filming Conan the Barbarian in Spain in 1981, James Earl Jones and a young Arnold Schwarzenegger worked out a quiet trade between takes. Jones coached him through his line readings while Schwarzenegger helped keep him in shape. Schwarzenegger later credited that easy mentorship as part of what taught him the actual craft of acting. The United States tried keeping daylight saving time in place all year round on 2 separate occasions, once during the Second World War to save energy and again in the 1970s during an energy crisis, And both times so many people missed the earlier winter sunrise that the country quietly switched back. A young Lionel Messi was diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency at age 10, and the treatment his family needed cost more than his father's insurance could keep covering. A boyhood spent waiting on injections and slow growth charts turned into one of the most decorated careers in the sport's history. In September 1695, the English pirate Henry Every and his small squadron caught the Mughal treasure ship Ganj Sawai in the Arabian Sea, seizing gold, silver, and jewels that later estimates placed as high as £600,000. It was called the richest prize any pirate crew ever took, and Every himself was never caught. In March 2001, the pilot flying Rowan Atkinson's small plane over Kenya fainted at the controls, and Atkinson kept the aircraft steady in the air until the pilot came back around. Once the pilot recovered, he brought them down safely at Wilson Airport in Nairobi, and the flight simply ended the ordinary way flights are supposed to. In August 2011, a film literally titled The Worst Movie Ever opened at a single theater in Los Angeles and sold exactly one paid ticket across its whole opening weekend, earning $11 total. It remains the lowest opening weekend gross ever recorded for a film released in theaters. Mississippi is the only state in the country with no law that expressly bans an open container of alcohol inside a moving car. Every other state closed that particular gap in its highway code decades ago, leaving Mississippi as a quiet holdout on an old rule almost nobody remembers being written. In 1930, an 11-year-old girl named Venetia Burney suggested the name Pluto for a newly discovered planet after her grandfather read her the news over breakfast. She lived to see Pluto reclassified as a dwarf planet in 2006, 3 years before she died at 90. In February 2018, a single Telugu character sent by text message was found to crash iPhones and other iOS devices the moment it appeared on screen. Apple traced the bug to how the character combined several smaller symbols and fixed it in the next software update. Robert Pattinson gave director Christopher Nolan a book of Oppenheimer's speeches from the 1950s as a wrap gift after they finished filming Tenet together. Nolan later said reading it was what first hooked him on the story, and it eventually led him to make the film Oppenheimer. And Frank's older sister Margot also kept a diary while the family hid from the Nazis, and once asked if she could read it. Margot's diary was never found after the war and is considered lost for good. During a heated 1966 World Cup match, Argentina's captain was sent off and refused to leave the field for several minutes, since referees at the time could only tell a player they were dismissed by speaking to them. The standoff convinced a top FIFA referee to borrow an idea from ordinary traffic lights, and within a year soccer had its first yellow and red cards. In August 1990, a fossil hunter named Sue Hendrickson wandered off to explore a rocky outcrop in South Dakota while the rest of her team drove into town to fix a flat tire. She spotted bones jutting from the cliff face that turned out to belong to one of the most complete Tyrannosaurus rex skeletons ever found, now known simply as Sue. Marcus Licinius Crassus, often remembered as the richest man in Roman history, built a fortune the ancient writer Pliny the Elder later put at 200 million sesterces, roughly equal to the entire annual budget of the Roman Republic. Much of it came quietly, through real estate and silver mines, long before his name was tied to any battle. The Trojan horse never actually appears in Homer's Iliad, which ends before the horse enters the story at all. The fuller version everyone knows today, the hidden soldiers, the false retreat, comes mostly from other ancient poems now lost and from Virgil's Aeneid, written centuries later by the Romans. In 1953, the BBC broadcast a live model train adaptation of the Railway series from a London studio, and partway through, one of the little engines came off the track because a set of points had not been set correctly. A crew member's hand reached calmly into frame to set it right back on the rails while the narrator quietly adjusted the story to match. During a recording session for Dire Straits' Money for Nothing in 1984, a microphone in the studio was knocked out of place and left pointing at the floor instead of the guitar amp. The accidental placement gave Mark Knopfler's guitar an unusual, layered tone that became the song's signature sound, and the band was never able to fully recreate it afterward. Years after Argentina beat Brazil at the 1990 World Cup, Diego Maradona confirmed a claim Brazilian defender Branco had made all along. A bottle of water offered from the Argentine bench that day had been laced with a mild sedative. Branco said he felt drowsy for the rest of the match, which Argentina went on to win. In the 1966 World Cup quarter-final at Wembley, Argentina's captain Antonio Rattin was sent off and refused to leave the field, sitting down on the red carpet reserved for the Queen. The confusion that followed led FIFA to introduce the yellow and red card system the next year, an idea borrowed quietly from ordinary traffic lights. The Romans had a quiet ritual called evocatio, used during a siege to invite an enemy city's own guardian deity to abandon its people and move to Rome instead, promising the god a fine new temple and steady worship. Rome performed it most famously in 396 BC against the Etruscan city of Veii, and once the city fell, its goddess Juno was carried to a new home on the Aventine Hill. In 1986, the artist Margaret Keane finally proved in a federal courtroom that she, not her ex-husband Walter, had painted the wide-eyed portraits sold under his name for decades. The judge asked both of them to paint one on the spot. Walter declined, citing a sore shoulder, and Margaret finished hers in under an hour. During the Second World War, the American Ghost Army fooled enemy scouts with inflatable tanks, canvas trucks, and loudspeakers playing recorded engine noise, and its soldiers kept the secret for about 40 years after the war ended. The story that carrots help you see in the dark was spread by British wartime posters, partly to explain away how their pilots kept finding planes at night, which was really the work of a new invention called radar. A brave carrier pigeon named G.I. Joe once flew 20 miles in 20 minutes to deliver a message that stopped a planned bombing, saving an Italian village, and was later given a medal for gallantry. Of the first animals to receive the Dickin Medal, Britain's award for animal bravery, most were pigeons, quietly carrying messages home through weather and distance on nothing but instinct. The code created from the Navajo language by American code talkers was never broken, because it lived not in a machine but in the memories of a few hundred speakers of one of the world's most complex languages. In the weeks before D-Day, several of the invasion's secret code names appeared innocently as crossword answers in a London newspaper, and the puzzled officers who investigated found only a schoolmaster and his puzzle-loving students. The emergency chocolate bar issued to American soldiers was designed on purpose to taste only a little better than a boiled potato, so that no one would be tempted to eat their emergency rations early. That's where we'll leave it for tonight. If this helped you drift off, subscribe and rest easy.